Hello and welcome. We're back in the kitchen. I'm Del, this is Dishes with Del. On this channel we cover all sorts of different things, but mostly we are here to help you guys to learn how to cook. That is my main goal. So this week we're going to take a little bit of a different turn. We're still going to make some things, but we're only going to use one main ingredient, and it's beetroot. He goes in and out of fashion, this guy, but for me it's always a winner. So we're going to learn how to make hummus, cake, juice, pickle, sauerkraut, 5 dishes, all using the beetroot. Some are sweet, some are savoury. It's going to be a bit of a mashup of all sorts of stuff, but all of which will be delicious. Beetroot sauerkraut, good for the belly. Beetroot juice, great for a morning wake up, but also it's like really good for like boosting your energy. We're going to make beetroot hummus, great for dips, great for parties, great for a sandwich. We're going to make cake, good for a little bit of afternoon tea. And then we're going to make pickle. He's going on your burgers, he's going on your sandwiches, I mean, all of which are great. So let's jump into it. Let's learn how to make beetroot 5 ways. So first things first, let's get some of these prepped. I'm making like a whole big batch of different stuff. So what I like to do is I like to get them all in the sink, and we're going to give them a quick wash. We want to get any of that dirt off that might be on the outside of the beetroot. Obviously they've come from the ground. And then we're going to get them prepped. I'm going to cut the top off. We're going to speed peel around the outside of these lovely beetroots, and then we're going to put them in a bowl. And because I'm making a whole lot at once, I'm going to get a whole lot prepped. It's silly to do the job a couple of times. I might as well just do a whole load at once. I keep all that skin and all the good stuff. If you've got a garden, put it in your compost. It's not only us lovely humans that like it in our belly, but also the garden. And then for a good portion of these, we're going to need to grate them. And again, I'm just going to do a whole lot all at once. A really good way to do this when you need to grate beetroots is get a deep tray, and then I like to seat the grater in it, and then I start to grate the beetroots. And what's really handy is that you can take the box grater off, push them to the back, and you've still got space to work at the front. And you can just continue that process until you've got the amount of beetroot grated that you need to grate. I also am going to keep the tops because they can go in juice, or we can use them to make something else later on. You could even just chop them up raw and, you know, put them in a salad. So this is all the prep work that I need to get done so that we can move on to making these 5 great dishes. So first one, we are going to make the beetroot sauerkraut. So as I was saying before, I've already done a lot of my prep, so I've got here some grated beetroots. The only other thing that we're going to need for this sauerkraut is some caraway seeds, which I just popped onto the stove and just gave a light toast till you start to hear them popping. We've got some salt and some cabbage. Now with sauerkraut, you also need some jars like this, which I sterilised. So I washed them with hot water, and then just pop them in the oven just to dry out. So you sit them upside down on a tray and just dry them out. You don't really want to use a cloth to do this because the cloth could have something on it which is going to get in there, so it's best to let them air dry. And then all we need to do is weigh it out. I'm just going to slice this cabbage. I'm going to keep the tops of the leaves because we're going to use that to push down on the sauerkraut when it's in the jar, so that there's no air getting to it. And then we're just going to mix it all together. We just mix it up, weigh it, we add the salt, and then we let it sit for about an hour so it's all wilted. Once it's all nice and soft, we get it into the jars, we stuff it all in, and then we just have to let it sit for a few days at like room temperature. If it's really hot and it's summertime, it'll be a few less days. If it's cold, it might be a few more. And then you've got yummy sauerkraut in the fridge, available all the time. I love it on breakfast, eggs with avocado, absolutely delicious. Anyways, let's get this last little bit of prep done, and then I'll show you the quantities of salt that we need to add. So that's that cabbage cut there. I actually decided that I wasn't going to use this piece. We're just going to put a little bit more beetroot, and actually this is quite a lot of cabbage, so that can go back in the fridge. But what we need to do is get a set of scales out, and we are going to pop it all in the bowl, weigh it, and then we're gonna add to that the salt. So let's get the weight. But what you must make sure is when you put your bowl on, that you then tear the scales again, because we don't want the weight of the bowl, we need just the weight of the cabbage and the beetroot. So, beetroot in. Cabbage in, sorry. And then beetroot, 2 cups. Nice full, generous ones. 1, and that's 2. And in fact, I think we're gonna make it 3. So it is almost half-half. So just put that to one side. I wash my hands because they go beetrooty like this. You can put gloves on, but you know, it comes off in a day. I've got my calculator, and what we need to do is this, that's 760 grams. And then you times that by 0.02 and you get the amount that you need. So it's 15 grams of salt that I need to put into this. And then let's just talk about the salt a little bit. So you want to make sure that you're using, what salt you're using. You don't want to go using flaky sea salt because it's expensive and it just doesn't do the same job. What you need is like a table salt, but be careful because Himalayan salt is a lot saltier than other salt. So even though it told me 15 grams, for me, because I'm using Himalayan, I'm actually going to go with 12. So that's 12 grams of salt, and then I'm just going to add that in. I'm also going to add 1/4 of a red onion. It doesn't need to be a lot, it just needs to be super, super finely sliced, and this just helps with the fermenting process. So add that in also. And then I'm going to add in that tablespoon of toasted caraway seeds. And then all we need to do is massage this all together so that salt is on everything. You can be quite aggressive with it, you know, in the way that you rub it, like almost mash it together a little bit, because you want to make sure that salt starts doing its job. And then we're just going to put that to one side, leave it for an hour, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so here is the beetroot kraut. It's had an hour, lots of juice has come out, and it's got really soft and supple. I've put an apron on because I don't want to get stuff on my new top, which is almost inevitable. I'm sure I probably will, as it's lime green, but it's the risk you take, right? So this, like I mean, you know, you can see here, it's soft. Before it was hard to bend, it was crunchy, but now it's soft and supple. So that is how we want it. And now all we need to do is put in the jars. But what I will say is use a jar that's got a big top if you can, because it's easier to get in there. These ones, as you can see, not as big. It's going to be a little bit harder to get it in, but we'll work it out. So we're going to put it in this one first, and you really want to make sure that you pack it in. So I'm just going to drop it in. Like that. And then what you want to do is make sure that there are no air holes in here. So as you can see there, I've pushed it down and it's disappeared almost into the half of the jar. So now we're going to fill it up a little bit more. And we're going to push it down. And can you see all that juice? That's the brine. And we want to make sure that that is on top of the mixture. The fuller you can pack them, the better, because then you have less chance of oxygen getting in there. And the oxygen is what is going to make it potentially turn rancid. So now we've squashed that down, and this is the other cabbage leaf. So what we're going to do is we're going to push it in, and this is going to be our seal, so that the top of that sauerkraut cannot be reached by the oxygen. So we're going to put 2 in, push it down again, and then we're going to put on the lid, and that essentially is our sauerkraut done. So now it's all in the jar. What I suggest you do is you sit it on a tray. you sit it on a tray while you do your fermentation out of the fridge. This is going to take anything between 4 days to 2 weeks, depending on the warmth of your house, kitchen, whatever. This is here for spillages because each day you need to undo the lid and let out the gas, because it will start to build up and you never know, it might even explode if you've got a particularly active wild yeast in your air. So be careful and be warned. Each day, open the lid, let the gas out. And then after a week to, a week and a half, depending on how really fermented you want it, that's it. It then goes into the fridge and it can sit there for months on end. Once it's fermented naturally, it's good to go. Often, the most active time when you're making a ferment is days 3 and 4. So that's when you've really got to be careful about the lid. But that is it. That's how you make easy sauerkraut that's absolutely delicious with all them amazing beetroots. Sauerkraut, so easy, really not difficult. All of you should make it at home. Like I said, good for the belly, good for the fridge. Next up, we are making beetroot hummus. So you will have seen me wrap these up in foil, and what I did out of all them beetroots, I picked some that were roughly the same size. If they're all the same size, they're roughly going to cook at the same time. I put them in the oven at 180 for about an hour and a half until the knife went through them and they were tender. And now they've cooled down and we're going to make the beetroot hummus. This is customizable however you want it. I'm just going to make mine really classic. Bit of tahini, some lemon juice, some garlic, salt, pepper. If you had some coriander, that would be great. You know, fresh coriander in there would be absolutely delicious. I just love straight up beetroot. I mean, beetroot hummus, hummus conjures up images of chickpeas, but you know, you don't have to put them in. You might be allergic to them. This is a great way to make a delicious dip, and plus the color of it is amazing. Also great if you wanted, you could put a spoonful of like sour cream in it, which is probably what I'm gonna do, just to make it a little bit creamier, but then obviously you have to eat it quicker. But if you were just to make it like this, it would last in the fridge for a good while. So let's get these into the blender with the other stuff, blend in, and then we've got beetroot hummus. So as you can see here, they're fully cooled down, but we still have the skin on, and there's a little bit of juice in the bottom. We can pour that in, keep that little bit of juice. But what you need to do is just peel off the skin. So we'll get all the skin peeled off of these, and as you can see, it just comes off super easy once it's cooled in that foil. You know, it's like continued to have like a bit of a steam out of the oven, and that's it. Again, you can put gloves on if you want, but it comes off pretty easy. So we'll get these peeled and then we can just cut them in half. So we've got our beetroots there. All I'm going to do is just slice them up a little bit, because then it's a little bit easier for the blender, so it's not trying to chop up these massive chunks. In they go. That's them. I'm also just going to give the garlic a little tiny chop. I've also got juice of half a lemon. That's going to go in too. You could also add some zest in and that would be absolutely delicious. And then a good old lump of tahini, which I suppose in theory is the hummus addition to this. It doesn't have any chickpeas, but it does have tahini, which authentic hummus has in it. We'll add a good bit of salt and pepper, but this we can always amend at the end. A little glug of olive oil, just to get it going, and then we're going to add in a little bit of that sour cream. But if you were making this and it was vegan, obviously don't go putting in the sour cream. I just quite like it because it makes that creamy texture. So just before we take it off here, we'll just give it another little taste. It's nutty from the tahini. It just has that little bit of creaminess from the sour cream. There's just a subtle hint of garlic. I mean, you may have wanted to add a little bit more lemon juice, but I just didn't have it, so that's what we went with. But yeah, beetroot hummus. And then I just like to put on top a few little toasted sesame seeds. It's such an easy dip to make at home, so you know, give it a go. And you can customize it any way you like. It doesn't just have to be with beetroots. I mean, it's just so fresh and yum. So that's beetroot hummus. let's move on to the next one. Next up, we've got a beetroot chutney. This I love. I live in New Zealand. This is the kind of stuff that ends up on a bloody burger all the time. But I used to love it when I was a kid too. Just that sweetness from the beetroot and the acidic from the vinegar. It's just absolutely fantastic. I don't know what it is about it. I do really love it. So this, again, really easy to make at home. Very simple, great way to use up the beetroots. So I've got 700 grams of the grated beetroot. I've got 300 grams of onion. I've got a little bit of cinnamon. In here are the spices that I just toasted off on the stove. So that's 1 tablespoon of coriander seeds, 1 tablespoon of onion seeds, and 1 cardamom seed. And I've just crushed them in the pestle and mortar. And that smell is honestly incredible. I've got 400 mils of vinegar, malt vinegar, 350 mils, and then I've done 50 mils of balsamic. Now, you don't need to do that, but if you've got balsamic, great. Again, you get a little bit of sweetness from it, and it's really delicious. And then sugar. And we're going to do 2 cups of sugar. I'm actually going to be using a half cup measure because I can't find my full cup measure, so I will be putting in 4 half cups. But yeah, all we need to do is put them all into a heavy pan, and we're going to put them on the stove, and we're going to start to cook it out and then pop it into sterilised jars, just like the sauerkraut, and that's it. It then gets the lid on it while it's hot, and Bob's your uncle. Once it's cooled down, into the fridge, and it's good to go. I mean, this is a preserve. It's got lots of sugar in it. It's got lots of vinegar in it. Once you cook it all out, in theory, it should last in the fridge for anything up to a year, if it lasts that long. It wouldn't over here in the dishes with Del Kitchen because it's just too delicious to put on stuff. I mean, we don't even have to saute it off. This goes in. I don't know why I put this, I don't know why I put the pan here, but that's what I did. So I've managed to drop a load on the floor. Perfect. We're gonna add the crushed spices, cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of allspice, that vinegar, and then in my case, 4 half cups of sugar. Do you know what? I actually think I'm only going to put 3 in. I think we're just going to go for 3 half cups. So that's 1.5 cups of sugar. I mean, this is a chutney, a jam, kind of jammy, pickly kind of thing. And unfortunately, it does need to have a lot of sugar in it. So we're going to put this on the stove, cook it down. We'll have a look at it in about half an hour. We're just going to put it on a low simmer, and then we'll see where it's at. And maybe it's going to need another 15-20 minutes. Maybe it's not. It also depends on how fresh your beetroots are. Like, these are like super crunchy and super crisp, so I don't think they're going to take very long to cook down at all. But we'll keep an eye on it, we'll have a look, and then I'll show you when we need to put the corn flour in. And that is that. So it cooked for about a half an hour, 35 minutes, and then I took out a little bit of the juice and I mixed it with 2 full tablespoons of cornstarch. Mixed that together and then cooked it all out so that it became shiny and glossy again. Because when you add in the cornstarch, it can become a little cloudy. So you know that when it's gone glossy and shiny, you can even give it a little taste that the cornstarch is fully cooked out. And that's it. We'll give it a little taste. Oh, them spices in there are just absolutely delicious. The vinegar is still sharp, but what we are actually going to do is just give it a little bit of a season with salt. It doesn't need to be a lot, just a few little pinches, just to counterbalance the sweetness. I've also removed a bit of cinnamon, and what you want to do when it comes off the stove is just give it 15 minutes or so to cool down slightly. Oh, yeah, with that little bit of salt. It's just wonderful. And then that's it. All we're going to do is put it into our sterilised jars, and then when it's fully cooled down, it can go into the fridge. And that is beetroot chutney done. Now, what would be really handy here is one of them large funnels that go into jars, but we don't all have them. So just do it like this. Give it a tidy up around the edges from where you may have spilt some, and then just pop on the lid. And that is how you make beetroot pickle. Super easy, super delicious, and you know what is great? These make really nice gifts at like Christmas and stuff, so it's great. You can make it now, put it in the fridge and give it to someone later on in the year. But that's it. So once they're cool and cold, they can go into the fridge, and that is beetroot pickle. Now we're onto the beetroot cake. So I've got my beetroots here, I've got 180 grams. So this is like some of the bits when I grated them that I couldn't finish to grate. So they're amazing to use for this because we need to chop this up real small. And I've got a little bit here, so it's 180 grams. And then I've got all my other ingredients weighed out. I've got 60 mils of coffee, 60 grams of veg oil. You could use coconut, it would be really great in this. And 180 mils of any kind of plant-based milk, oat, almond, coconut, whatever you like. That's all in there. 75 grams of cocoa, 200 grams of sugar. I've got half brown, half white, just because it's a little bit nicer. And then we've got 160 grams of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, and half a teaspoon of salt. That's all the ingredients ready. Then what we need to do, I'm just gonna get these all nicely chopped up really fine, and we're gonna put it all in the blender. I've got a big blender that I can use, which is great, but you could use like a NutriBullet, and you're basically going to use this liquid to blend these because we want them to be really nice and smooth, and we just don't want any chunks. That's why it's important when we cut this up now that we cut it up really nice and small so it's got a good chance of blending. So we'll just get that all ready. I think I forgot to say, this cake is vegan. Gosh, I don't know why. I completely forgot to say it there at the beginning, but this is a vegan beetroot cake. You know, a little bit of chocolate. It's delicious. And then what I'm going to do is get a big bowl here ready for when this is blended so that we can just add it to it. What I've also done is turn the oven on to 180 degrees because once we've got this all together and the baking powder and the baking soda is in, we really want to get it in the oven as quick as possible. So what I'm going to do is add it all into my jug blender, get that all in there, add in the liquid. Maybe not all of it, we'll do half first of all and really get it going, get that pureed nice, get that puree really going, and then we can thin it out. If you didn't have a blender like this, it doesn't matter. You can, like I said, do it in like a NutriBullet or something like that. You do want something that does blend well. I mean, you can even do it in a like RoboCoupe, but you just want it to be nice and pureed. So then we're just going to pour all that out into a bowl, scrape all that last bit out, and then we'll add in the last of the liquid, give that all a mix together. And this is a good opportunity to see if there are any big lumps of beetroot, in which case, if there are, you can take them out. And then we're going to add in the sugar, but if there are any lumps, just break them up before you put them in. We'll give that a good stir so it starts to dissolve that sugar. If you need any of my recipes, you can head to my website. I've left a link in the comment section down below. And here I've got the flour, the cocoa, and the salt and the baking agents all mixed together. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to sieve it in 3 batches. Just so we don't get any lumps, because cocoa powder often you get lumps. So in which case, just use the back of your spoon and push them all through. Oh, someone over the edge there, classic. And look, you can see here all these little lumps that get caught, and they take a really long time to disintegrate, so it's always good to catch them in the sieve. I'm just going to give this little bit a mix first of all. Just so it starts to become incorporated, because as you can see, it's currently quite wet, but it will all come together. But what you want to do is make sure that there are no lumps. So it's good to do it a little bit at a time. Oh, that cocoa already smells fantastic. This is what I'm talking about. You can see some of these lumps which are forming, so it is quite important that you fully mix it before you add your next bit of flour, so that you can kind of get rid of any really big floury lumps. And just get all that last bit in. Start working it together, and soon enough you'll see that it comes together as a nice batter. You can smush it up against the sides a little bit just to really get rid of any of them lumps. It's quite amazing how the consistency changes from what looked like a very, very wet mix is now becoming thicker and more cake-like batter. And like I said, every now and again, just smash it up against the sides like that to really get rid of any of them big, big lumps. And there is your batter. And that will just slightly thicken up a little bit more before we get it into the tub. And so here I've got a loaf tin, and what we're going to do is we're just going to line it fully on both sides. So to do that, I'm just going to put this to one side, and we're going to take some baking paper that's over the width of the container, and then you can just push it all down like that. Yes, there are a few little folds in it, but I quite like them. Makes it feel a little bit more rustic. And then we just pour in the batter. We give it one last mix to make sure it's all good, and then in it goes. That lovely, rich, beetrooty, all encased in that baking paper. And then this goes into a preheated 180-degree oven for about 55 minutes. But that's because it's such a damp mix that it needs to cook all the way through. But this thing honestly turns out absolutely amazing. So in it goes, and we'll come back to it in 55 minutes. And then we're going to make the frosting, and we're going to have a lovely piece of beetroot cake for afternoon tea. See you in a bit. The cake has been in for 50 minutes, so I thought I'd just give it a quick check and see how it was. I'd covered it up with a piece of tin foil because it was starting to get a little bit cooked on the top. As you can see, there's still a little bit coming out on the skewer. I put it on for another 10 minutes, we'll check it, but I think it will probably be more like 15, so it actually takes an hour and 10 minutes to cook. The cake's out the oven, and we're just going to make the frosting for the top. So I've got 100 mils of full fat coconut cream and 100 grams of chocolate. I'm just going to warm this up until it's boiling, and then we're going to pour it all over the chocolate. The chocolate here, break it up into nice small pieces. You can even chop it, but these are quite thin, so breaking them up will be absolutely fine. And then we're going to pour the coconut cream over the top, and we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. We're not going to stir it, we're just going to let it sit. And that's the cream. Just as 1 or 2 bubbles before it's about to boil, it's ready to go. And then we pour it all over that chocolate. And as you can see, it's starting to melt. Oh my God, yes. And there it is, all mixed together, all smooth. We're just going to let that cool so it's solidified a little bit more, and then we can top it on the cake. Oh, so simple, so easy, and oh my God, it's so delicious. And actually, if you weren't a coconut fan, I don't even know, you know, we know it's coconut because we saw the full fat coconut cream going in there, but actually, it's not overpoweringly coconutty. So, you know, I reckon you could even fool someone that didn't like it. I'm just going to leave that to one side for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we can pop it on the cake. And there it is. The cake is cooled, and here is the frosting. And then, oh my God, look at that. Oh, you just dollop it on the top and all down the sides. Give it a little taste. That is so good. And then on top of mine, I've got some cocoa nibs that are coated just for a little bit of crunch on top. And oh my God, look at that. So I suppose now we should get into it. Oh my God, it's like fudgy and gooey in the middle. Oh, that is delicious. Oh my God, look at it. It just looks incredible. Now, I'm just gonna have to give it a taste. It looks so moist. Oh my God, that interior is like the best chocolate cake you've ever eaten. Oh, and the ganache on top is rich and creamy. You would never know that this cake was vegan, because I tell you what, it's absolutely delicious. Oh, and that is beetroot cake. You should definitely try it at home. And any vegan in your life will absolutely love you, because this is delicious. All right, next beetroot dish, off we go. And then the fifth and final, beetroot juice. Now you're probably thinking, hey Del, you appear to already have some in a bottle. And this guy looks very clean. Well, guess what? We did a classic Del and forgot to press record. So I made all the juice, I talked to you guys about it, and then I realized that I hadn't pressed play. So I'm just gonna talk you through this one. Now, as you can see here, I have what looks like an industrial juicer. I got this secondhand for, I think I paid $40, which is like £17 and £20 in the UK. You know, great way to be able to get them secondhand, because they can be expensive. But you know, you don't have to buy a juicer that's like this. You can buy like the little egg ones that nicely sit on the counter, and they still do an amazing job. When I used to live in an apartment, that's what I used to have, and I absolutely loved it. And the best thing about juice is you can put in whatever is in season and is good and cheap, because otherwise juice can be quite expensive to make. But I do love to have it, and it's a good little morning pick-me-up, because yeah, the beetroot is good to get you going. So in this one I put some apples, I put carrots, I put beetroots, I put celery. The great thing about this is you don't have to cut anything. Well, you don't have to cut any skin off, you can just cut them in half and shove them through. I also put in a whole big nugget of ginger, all the things that make you feel alive and zingy and fresh and just like so good. In the morning, I mean, I also put some turmeric in because I had some fresh turmeric, but if you had like loads of parsley, you could put that in there. Maybe you had some cucumbers. I mean, cucumbers would also be absolutely incredible. So I'm sorry that I'm not showing you how to juice it, but I think you get the idea. You can customize it as you like. You know, you can make it more appley, you can make it more carroty, or you can just go straight out beetroot juice. However you want to drink it, it's absolutely great. So let's give this guy a taste from earlier on. Oh my God, I mean, the color of it is just absolutely amazing, and it's like so fresh. I just absolutely love it. It just makes you feel good all the way to the inside of your belly. Anyways, this has been beetroot. If you've enjoyed this, please let me know. Even better, give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys. And you know, again, if you ever want to know anything, or if you've got a question about anything, you just get in contact with me. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you. Or you can head to my website, and there you can find all of my recipes. That is also linked in the box down below. That has been Beetroots. I hope you found something in there that you liked, and you really should give all of them a go, because they are just absolutely delicious. So until next week, I'll see you later.